Hi! Welcome back to Truth Fairy Tidbits. I am the Truth Fairy, and I am here to feed you little bits of information that you otherwise probably wouldn't look at if you are still of the statist mindset. If you haven't been here before, please go back and start the beginning of my videos so that any of this will make sense to you. Today, we're getting close to the end of our first source of information. And this part basically is explaining, oh man, I can't see out of my glasses, hold on. Basically explaining, since government is illegitimate and all of that, then who really is running things and where do these people actually get their power, right? And basically everything always comes down to money. So let's dig into this. A little bit more reading today, so I will try to go fast and not get dyslexic like I did the other day. Okay? All right, here we go. I'll catch you back up. As usual, the Constitution, having never been signed by anybody, and there being no other open, written, or authentic contract between any parties whatsoever, by virtue of which the United States government, so-called, is maintained, and being well known that a large number of these adult persons seldom or never vote at all, and that those who do vote do so secretly, and consequently in a way to make no one openly responsible for the acts of their agents or representatives. All these things being known, the question arises: who compose the real governing power in the country? Who are the men who rob us of our property, restrain us of our liberty, subject us to their arbitrary dominion? Who of our neighbors are members of this secret band of robbers and murderers, that we may kill them and rid the world and ourselves of such tyrants and monsters? These are questions that must be answered before men can be free, before they can protect themselves against this secret band of robbers and murderers who now plunder, enslave, and destroy them. The answer to these questions, that only those who have the will and the power to shoot down their fellow men are the real rulers in this and other so-called civilized countries. Among savages, mere physical strength on the part of one man may enable him to rob, enslave, or kill another man. Among barbarians, mere physical strength on the part of a body of men with very little money or other wealth may enable them to rob, enslave, or kill another body of men. But with so-called civilized people, who have invented such weapons and other means of defense as to render mere physical strength of less importance, can always be had for money. As a necessary consequence, those who stand ready to furnish this money are the real rulers. The nominal rulers, the emperors and presidents, kings and parliaments, are anything but the real rulers of their respective countries. They are little or nothing else than mere tools employed by the wealthy to rob, enslave, and if need be, murder those who have less wealth or none at all. Okay, this is a very important point because I've been saying this throughout these videos, that the puppets that you vote for, that are in office, the president, Congress, all these people, they have no power. They are puppets. They are there to do what they're told to do by these other groups of people who are not voted for. And he's going to get into one example of who these people are. The Rothschilds and that class of moneylenders, men who never think of lending a shilling to their next door neighbors for purposes of honest industry, stand ready at all times to lend money in unlimited amounts to those robbers and murderers who call themselves governments, to be expended in shooting down those who do not submit quietly to being robbed and enslaved. They lend their money in this manner, knowing that it is to be expended in murdering their fellow men, for simply seeking their liberty and their rights, knowing also that neither the interest nor the principal will ever be paid except as it will be extorted. The Rothschilds say to themselves, if we lend 100 million sterling to the Queen and Parliament of England, it will enable them to murder 20, 50, or 100,000 people in England, Ireland, or India, and the terror inspired by such wholesale murder will enable them to keep the whole of the people of those countries in subjection for 50 years to come, to control all their trade and industry, and to extort from them large amounts of money under the name of taxes, and from the wealth thus extorted from them can afford to pay us a higher rate of interest for our money than we can get any other way. Again, that's how they keep you subjected by the fear that they have power and that they will literally kill you in a lot of instances if you try to resist them. That keeps everybody quietly going along with the circus and voting and all of that, and then they can continue to rob future generations forever. So, why are these men so ready to lend money for murdering their fellow men? Solely for this reason, that such loans are considered better investments than loans for purposes of honest industry. They pay higher rates of interest, and it is less trouble to look after them. This is the whole matter. Oh, excuse me. When these great lenders of blood money, like the Rothschilds, have loaned vast sums in this way, they sell out the bonds taken by them in small amounts to anybody and everybody who are disposed to buy them at satisfactory prices to hold as investments. Rothschilds thus get back their money with great profits and are now ready to lend the money in the same way again. It is like lending money to slave traders or to common robbers and pirates to be repaid out of their plunder. And the men who loan the money to governments are amongst the greatest villains that the world has ever seen, and they as much deserve to be hunted and killed. When these emperors and kings obtain their loans, they proceed to hire and train immense numbers of professional murderers called soldiers. In fact, most of them keep large bodies of these murderers constantly in service as their only means of enforcing their extortion. The enslaved people are, of course, forced to support and pay all these murderers, as well as to submit to all the other extortions which these murderers are employed to enforce. In addition to paying the interest on their bonds, they grant to the holders of them great monopolies in banking, like the banks of England and France and Vienna, with the agreement that these banks shall furnish money whenever, in sudden emergencies, it may be necessary to shoot down more of their people. Okay, so it continues on. It gets more detailed on that same kind of thing, but that gives you a little idea of how you're not in charge. The government is not in charge. The president is not in charge. Congress is not in charge. None of these people have any real power, okay? They are all bought and paid for and controlled by people above them, and we'll go into that later, but this should easily get you to see how it escalates, okay? You have a few at the top that delegate their plans, and it trickles down through all the puppets and gets carried out among the sheep that have no idea that that's going on. And most, I think I've said before, most of the people at these lower levels don't even have any idea what's going on. You rarely know what's going on above your pay grade, right? So, you know, the janitor cleaning the bathroom at a corporation has no idea what's going on in the boardroom, right? He does his job, he gets his paycheck. Then you have the people in the boardroom who know a little bit more about what's going on in the company. But then you have the investors and the shareholders and all of that shit going on. And it gets fewer and fewer at the top. So when you try to explain to somebody that there's an agenda and it's being carried out by just a few people, and that makes no sense, because how can a few people control billions of people? It's pretty easy to see. Apply the same logic to any other industry, like military. You have generals, right? And I don't know what the hierarchy is, but eventually you have all the soldiers, right? That just do what they're fucking told. They don't know what decisions are being made up in the general's office and all of that stuff. They do what they're told, period, the end. And they're trained that way and they're programmed that way. That's why the order followers are a specifically brainwashed group of people. They don't question what they're told to do. And even if it means like murdering children in other countries, you just do what you're told. So if you apply that to literally everything, the government, the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare industry, like all of these things, you do what you're told, you get your paycheck, you start questioning stuff, you're going to get kicked out. That was very evident during the COVID bullshit. When doctors and nurses started questioning what was happening and saying this makes no sense, they got kicked out. And then when the stabs came around, when people didn't get their stabs, you just got kicked out. If you questioned it or you tried to point out that it was bullshit and fake, it was fake. There is no viruses. You got kicked out. That's how they maintain control. That is how the few control the many. It's really not that complicated. You do your job, you get to whatever level you want to get to, and that's all you are allowed to know about. Okay, it's pretty simple. So that was the point of this section today. I think we might be done with this maybe tomorrow. I'm going to skim through. There's just one more section left. But yeah, people that lend money to governments, well, I'll get into it. I'll get into it later. I'll get into it later. It's so difficult. I've said before, it's so difficult when you're trying to explain how things connect, but it's like, I can't explain all this when you don't see how it gets there. So it's a lot going on up in here. Sorry if I'm constantly just scattered. Okay. What else? I think that's it. So like and share and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And that's it. And I'll see you later. Do not comply. Bye.